Mitch thought he'd humiliated an old man with a fake veteran story. But the truth hits harder. What happens next leaves the entire precinct speechless. The morning sun hung low over Redding, California, casting a warm glow through the smudged windows of Harlow's Diner on Juniper Avenue. The place was a relic of another time. Faded red booths, a jukebox that hadn't worked since the 80s, and a counter where locals swapped stories over greasy plates of eggs and hash browns. The air carried the comforting scent of sizzling bacon and slightly burnt coffee, the kind that sticks to your clothes and reminds you of home. I sat in my usual corner booth, the one with the cracked vinyl that poked at my thighs through my worn flannel shirt. At 90, I don't move as fast as I used to, but I still make it here every Wednesday. Like clockwork. 2 eggs over easy, rye toast, black coffee. It's not just breakfast, it's a ritual, a tether to a life that's mostly memories now. My name's Leonard Harris, and I've seen more than most. Vietnam, 66 to 69. Radio operator, 101st Airborne. I carried shrapnel in my leg for 50 years, a souvenir from a night I don't talk about. These days I keep to myself, just another old man in a small town, blending into the background. But today I did something out of character. At the counter, a young woman, Rosa Martinez, I'd learn later, was struggling. Her toddler clung to her leg, whining softly while she dug through her purse, her face flushed with embarrassment. The cashier, a kid named Dylan with acne and an attitude, tapped his foot like he had somewhere better to be. She was short a few bucks for her order, and the way her shoulders slumped told me she was carrying more than just a hungry kid. I slid out of my booth, my knees creaking, and walked over. "Here," I said, pulling a crumpled 20 from my wallet. The bill was soft from years of folding, but it'd do. I got it. Rosa's eyes widened, dark and grateful. "Sir, you don't have to do that." "It's no trouble," I said, managing a smile despite the ache in my leg. "Just pass it on when you can." She nodded, clutching her kid a little tighter, and I turned back to my booth. That's when I heard it. A low, mocking chuckle from a table nearby. A guy in a leather jacket, Mitch Carver, leaned back in his chair, his greasy hair catching the light. "Look at Grandpa playing hero," he said to his buddy, loud enough for half the diner to hear. "Probably thinks he's still in the war or something." I ignored him. I've heard worse. 50 years ago, I was dodging bullets in a jungle while guys like Mitch were probably dodging the draft. But his words stung, like a splinter you can't quite pull out. I sat back down, sipped my coffee, and tried to focus on the bitter taste instead of the heat rising in my chest. Then the door swung open, and 2 cops walked in. Their radios crackled, their boots heavy on the linoleum. Officer Craig Dunlap, built like a linebacker with a buzz cut to match, scanned the room like he was hunting. His partner, Tara Ellison, had a sharp jaw and eyes that didn't miss much. The diner went quiet, forks pausing midair, conversations fading to whispers. "Leonard Harris." Dunlap's voice cut through the silence. I looked up, my coffee mug halfway to my lips. "That's me." "We need you to come with us," he said, stepping closer. His tone was all business, no warmth. I set the mug down, my hand steady despite the confusion. "What's this about?" "There's been a complaint," Ellison said, her hand resting on her belt close to her holster. "Let's not make this harder than it needs to be." The diner buzzed again, whispers turning to murmurs. Rosa turned from the counter, her toddler now quiet in her arms. "He didn't do anything wrong," she called out, her voice trembling but firm. "Stay out of this," Dunlap snapped, not even looking at her. He turned back to me. "Outside, Mr. Harris, now." I stood slowly, my joints protesting. At 90, I'm not frail, but I'm no spring chicken either. I adjusted my glasses, the same wireframes I've worn for decades, and looked at the officers. "Can you at least tell me what I'm supposed to have done?" Outside, Ellison repeated, her voice like steel. Mitch Carver smirked from his table, leaning toward his buddy. Told you the old man was trouble. Probably scamming that lady with some sob story. I wanted to say something, to tell him to shut his mouth, but I held my tongue. I've learned over the years that words don't always fix ignorance. Instead, I walked toward the door, the officers flanking me like I was some kind of threat. The patrons watched, some with pity, others with curiosity. Rose's eyes followed me, full of guilt and something like defiance. Outside, the morning air was crisp, the sun climbing higher. The police cruiser's lights flashed red and blue, painting the street in sharp contrasts. Dunlap cuffed my hands behind my back, the metal cold and too tight against my wrists. This necessary? I asked, keeping my voice even. Procedure, he grunted, shoving me toward the car. The ride to the Reading police station was short, but it felt like an eternity. The cruiser smelled of stale coffee and leather, and the radio crackled with dispatch calls. I sat in the back, my hands aching from the cuffs, my mind turning over what had happened. A complaint? From who? Mitch, most likely, with his loud mouth and small mind. I'd dealt with men like him before, cowards who hide behind accusations. But being cuffed at 90, after all I'd been through, felt like a betrayal deeper than I could name. At the station, a squat brick building on Cypress Road, they put me in a holding room. The fluorescent lights buzzed like angry wasps, and the chair was hard, digging into my back. Dunlap stood by the door, arms crossed, while Ellison scribbled on a clipboard. I sat there, my hands still cuffed, feeling every one of my 90 years. I deserve to know why I'm here, I said, my voice calm but edged with steel. Dunlap sighed, like I was wasting his time. We got a call about a disturbance at Harlow's. Someone said you were harassing customers, trying to scam them with a fake veteran story. My jaw tightened. Fake? I'd carried a radio through jungles, relayed orders under fire, watched men die while I kept the line open. And now some punk thought he could slap fake on me like a cheap label. That's a lie, I said. I paid for a woman's meal. Check my wallet. You'll find my veteran's card. Ellison grabbed my wallet from the desk, flipping through it. She pulled out the card, faded but legible, with my name and service number. Dunlap glanced at it and snorted. Vietnam, that was a lifetime ago. Doesn't mean you're not causing trouble now. I leaned back, my eyes narrowing. You ever serve, son? Dunlap's face reddened, but he didn't answer. Ellison shot him a look, then turned to me. We have a witness who says you were aggressive, making people uncomfortable. You got anything to say about that? I paid for a meal, I said, each word deliberate. That's all. The door opened, and a desk sergeant, Marla Kent, stuck her head in. Her face was pale, her voice urgent. Dunlap, Ellison, you've got a situation. FBI's here. Dunlap's brow furrowed. FBI? For what? They're asking for Harris, Marla said. Said it's urgent. I kept my face neutral, but my heart skipped. The FBI? I hadn't expected this. Not today, not ever. The officers exchanged uneasy glances, clearly caught off guard. I sat back, my cuffed hands still, waiting to see what came next. You won't believe who stood up for me. This is just the start. It gets much heavier from here. The Reading police station was a maze of fluorescent lights and cheap linoleum, the kind of place that makes you feel small, no matter who you are. I sat in that holding room, my wrists still sore from the cuffs, staring at a crack in the wall like it held answers. The accusation burned, scamming, they said. Me, Leonard Harris, who'd spent my life keeping my head down, doing right by people. I'd paid for Rose's meal because it was the decent thing to do, the kind of thing my mama taught me back in Georgia before I ever saw a uniform. Now here I was, 90 years old, treated like a crook because some loudmouth in a leather jacket couldn't mind his own business. Dunlap came back, his face tight with irritation. He unlocked the cuffs with a grudging twist, muttering about protocol. "FBI's waiting in the lobby," he said. "Don't know what they want with you, but you're not off the hook." I rubbed my wrists, feeling the blood flow back. "Didn't think I was," I said, my voice dry as the California dust outside. Ellison led me down a hallway, her boots clicking like a metronome. The lobby was cramped, with a vending machine humming in the corner and a couple of plastic chairs that looked like they'd seen better days. Two men in dark suits stood near the front desk, their postures stiff, like they were carved from oak. The older one, Agent Paul Travers, had gray hair and eyes that could cut through steel. His partner, Javier Morales, was younger, with a clean-shaven face and a quiet intensity that reminded me of soldiers I'd known, men who didn't need to raise their voice to be heard. "Leonard Harris?" Travers asked, stepping forward. "That's me," I said, meeting his gaze. "We need to speak with you." "Privately," he said, his tone leaving no room for debate. Dunlap bristled, his chest puffing out. "Hold on, he's in our custody. You can't just—" "This is federal jurisdiction," Morales cut in, his voice smooth but firm. "We'll handle it." Ellison frowned, her hand still near her holster. "What's this about? He's just an old guy who caused a scene at a diner." Travers raised an eyebrow, and I caught a flicker of amusement in his eyes. "Is that what you think? You might want to check your facts." I kept quiet, my hands clasped in front of me. I didn't know why the FBI was here. But I'd learned long ago that life has a way of dragging up the past when you least expect it. The officers backed off, their faces sour, and Travers gestured for me to follow. They led me to a small conference room, away from the station's chaos. Morales pulled out a chair, his movements respectful. "Please sit," he said. I sat, my back straight despite the ache in my joints. "Mind telling me what's going on?" I asked, keeping my voice even. Travers leaned against the table, his eyes studying me like I was a puzzle he hadn't quite solved. "Mr. Harris, we're here because of a report we got this morning. Someone at Harlow's flagged you as a threat. But that's not why we're really here. It's about your service record." My brow furrowed. "My service record? That was over 50 years ago." Morales nodded, his hands folded on the table. "Yes, sir. But your name came up in connection to a case we're working on. A sensitive one." I leaned back, my mind racing. Vietnam was a lifetime ago. Jungles, gunfire, the crackle of a radio under a sky lit by tracer rounds. I'd been a radio operator, relaying coded messages while bullets tore through the air. I'd seen things I didn't talk about, not even to my late wife, God rest her soul. Why would it matter now? Before I could answer, the door burst open. Mitch Carver stormed in, his leather jacket creaking, his face red with indignation. Marla Kent trailed behind, trying to stop him. "That's him!" Mitch shouted, jabbing a finger at me. "This is the guy who was scamming people. You're not letting him go, are you?" Travers's eyes narrowed to slits. "And you are?" "Mitch Carver," he spat. "I'm the one who called you." He was harassing people, acting all high and mighty with some fake veteran story. I felt my blood boil, but I kept my mouth shut. I'd faced worse than Mitch Carver, men with guns, not just loud voices. Morales stood, his voice low and dangerous. "Mr. Carver, you're interrupting a federal investigation. Leave, now." Mitch hesitated, his bravado faltering. "Whatever," he muttered, storming out. "You'll see I'm right." The door slammed behind him, and the room fell quiet. Travers turned back to me, his expression softening. "We apologize for that. As I was saying, we need your help. Your time in Vietnam involved classified operations. We believe you have information about a mission that's relevant to our case." My stomach tightened. Classified didn't begin to cover it. The mission they were talking about, 68 near the Cambodian border, was a nightmare. A covert op, a prototype radio transmitter, a team ambushed in the dark. I'd been the only one to make it out with the codes, dragging a wounded man through the mud while the enemy closed in. I'd sworn never to speak of it, not to anyone. "I'm not sure how I can help," I said carefully. "I don't talk about those days." "We understand," Morales said, his voice gentle. "But there's a missing piece in a case involving national security. Your name came up in old records. We think you know something about a transmitter lost in '68. I stared at the table, memories flooding back, screams, the smell of cordite, the weight of a dying man's hand on my shoulder. I'd kept those secrets for decades, locked them away where they couldn't hurt me. Now they were back, like ghosts that wouldn't stay buried. "I'll need more specifics," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Travers nodded, about to respond when the door opened again. This time it was Marla Kent, her face pale. "Agents, there's someone else here. Says he knows Mr. Harris." I looked up, my heart skipping. Who else could possibly be dragged into this mess? To say what happened next caught everyone off guard would be an understatement. The truth that unfolded changed everything. The conference room at the Reading police station felt smaller with every passing minute, the air thick with tension and the faint hum of fluorescent lights. I sat there, my hands clasped on the table, feeling the weight of Agent Travers's and Agent Morales's eyes on me. They weren't hostile, not like Dunlap and Ellison, but their scrutiny was its own kind of pressure. They wanted answers about a mission I'd buried long ago, a night in '68 that still woke me up sweating, the jungle's heat clinging to my skin like it was yesterday. I wasn't ready to dig it up. Not for them. Not for anyone. Mitch Carver's outburst still echoed in my head. Fake veteran, he'd called me. The nerve of that man, sitting there in his leather jacket, judging me from his diner booth like he knew a damn thing about sacrifice. I'd seen boys younger than him die for less, but I kept my anger in check, the way I'd learned to over the years. Anger doesn't solve much. It just clouds your judgment. Travers slid a file across the table, its edges worn, but official looking. "Mr. Harris, we're investigating a case tied to a covert operation you were part of. A radio transmitter, a prototype, was lost during a mission in Vietnam. We believe it surfaced in the hands of a private collector." I stared at the file, my heart pounding. That transmitter wasn't just equipment. It was a lifeline, a piece of tech so advanced for its time it could encrypt messages the enemy couldn't crack. Or so we thought. The mission had gone wrong from the start. An ambush in the dark. Our team scattered, the transmitter left behind in the chaos. I'd barely made it out, dragging a wounded lieutenant through the mud while bullets tore past us. The official report said the transmitter was destroyed. If it was back, it meant trouble. Big trouble. "I don't know anything about that," I said, my voice steady but heavy. "The mission was a mess. We were overrun. I thought that thing was gone for good." Morales leaned forward, his eyes searching mine. "We believe you, Mr. Harris, but we need to confirm the details. The collector claims he bought it from a third party, but the trail's cold. We need to know what happened that night." I swallowed hard, the memories clawing at me. The screams of my team, the crackle of static in my headset, the weight of an oath I'd taken to keep silent. "I signed papers," I said. "Swore I'd never talk about it. You know how that works." Travers nodded, his expression grim. "We do. But if that transmitter's codes are still active, it could decrypt classified communications from that era. We need to know what you saw." Before I could answer, the door swung open, and a man in a crisp military uniform stepped in. His chest was heavy with ribbons, his face weathered but commanding. Colonel Raymond Delgado, a name I hadn't heard in decades, saluted me sharply. "Sergeant Major Harris, sir." I stood, my old instincts kicking in, and returned the salute. "Colonel Delgado, been a long time." The room went still, the air thick with the weight of our shared history. Delgado turned to the agents. "I need a moment with Mr. Harris, alone." Travers hesitated, then nodded. "5 minutes, Colonel." He and Morales stepped out, leaving us in the quiet. Delgado sat across from me, his eyes softening. "Len, I owe you an apology. I never should have left you behind that night." I clenched my jaw, the memory of that mission flooding back. "You did what you had to, Ray. You saved the package." I held the line. He shook his head, his voice low. "I left my best man behind. I've carried that for 50 years. I looked away, my throat tight. We all carried something from that war. Delgado leaned forward, his voice earnest. "You got us out, Len. You kept the comms open, dragged me out of that hellhole. You saved us all. And we never thanked you." I blinked back the sting in my eyes. "I did my job, Ray. That's all." He stood, extending his hand. "You did more than that. You're a hero, and I'm here to make sure the world knows it." I shook his hand, my grip firm despite the years. "I don't need medals, Ray. I just want to go home." "You're going home," he said. "But first, we need your help one last time." The door opened again, and Rosa Martinez rushed in, her toddler trailing behind. Marla Kent followed, looking flustered. "Mr. Harris," Rosa said, her voice shaking, "I told them you didn't do anything wrong. You helped me, and that man, Mitch Carver, he lied." I patted her hand, my voice soft. "Thank you, Rosa. You didn't have to come." "Yes, I did," she said, her eyes fierce. "You're a good man. They can't treat you like this." Before I could respond, the room filled with more people, men and women in civilian clothes, some with veteran pins gleaming on their jackets. A woman with a notebook, Vanessa Reed, a local reporter, pushed through, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Mr. Harris," she said, "we're hearing you're a Vietnam War hero. Can you tell us what happened at the diner?" I shook my head. "No comment." Delgado stepped forward, his voice booming. "I'll comment. This man is a hero. He served with distinction, risked his life for his country, and today he was falsely accused of a crime he didn't commit. I'm here to set the record straight." The crowd murmured, Vanessa's pen flying across her notebook. I sat there, my heart pounding. I hadn't wanted this, didn't want my past dragged into the open. I'd come to Harlow's for eggs and coffee, not to be the center of a circus. Delgado turned to the crowd, his presence commanding. "Sergeant Major Leonard Harris will be released immediately. The Reading Police Department has dropped all charges, thanks to the testimony of Ms. Martinez and others who saw the truth." A cheer went up, and I felt my cheeks flush. Rosa was crying now, her toddler clinging to her leg. Delgado stood beside me, a rock in the storm. The FBI agents watched from the sidelines, their faces unreadable. Marla Kent stepped forward, her voice soft. "Mr. Harris, you're free to go. We're sorry for the misunderstanding." I nodded, my voice gruff. "Thank you, ma'am." As I walked toward the door, the crowd parted, their faces full of respect. Some saluted, others reached out to shake my hand. I nodded to each, my heart heavy, but warm. Outside the sun was high, the air warm against my skin. A van pulled up, and a group of veterans stepped out, their faces solemn. They saluted me, one by one, their respect a quiet weight. "Welcome home, Sergeant Major," one said, his voice thick. I nodded, unable to speak. For the first time in years, I felt the burden of my service lift, just a fraction. I'd carried it alone for so long, but now, surrounded by those who understood, I found a spark of peace. I climbed into the van, Delgado at my side. The crowd cheered as we pulled away, and I raised a hand, my eyes fixed on the road ahead. The station and the weight of 50 years faded behind me.